Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's Reddit stories are about entitled parents. Stealing candy from a baby? Nope. A child stealing candy from an adult. Our first story is by Call Me Desdenova 42. This happened almost 6 years ago. I had just turned 20. At the time, I was a college student with no job, but I occasionally worked as a babysitter. It wasn't anything too serious, and I charged almost nothing, but I was good with kids and parents liked me. Plus, it was the first job I ever had, so I was proud of it. During vacations, I went to the mall with 3 of my friends to see Spider-Man: Homecoming at the movies. We got there early and decided to stop by a toy store so one of my friends could buy a birthday gift for his cousin. There was a candy kiosk nearby, and I wanted to get some for the movie, so I told my friends to go ahead without me, that I'd meet them in the store. As I was buying the candy, the store was giving out samples of a new product. It was some kind of long chocolate stick. Think Pocky, but thicker. They gave me one for free, and I left. I bit into it once or twice and went back to the store to meet my friends. As I was walking through the doll aisle, I passed by a little girl about 7 or 8 and her mother, entitled mother. I put my hand that was holding the chocolate down for a second. Seconds later, the girl came up to me, quickly snatched the candy from my hand, and shoved the piece she'd broken off into her mouth. I yelled out a quick, "What the heck?" Careful not to swear at kids, which got entitled mother's attention. I explained what happened to her. To my absolute shock at the time, the mom seemed to be angry at the daughter at first, demanding she'd apologize to me. But the girl was making excuses. She was hungry, the chocolate was right in front of her, she wanted it more than me, and seemed to think she had nothing to apologize for. As she proceeded to tell her mom she'd done nothing wrong, entitled mother said something along the lines of, "I know, honey, but we don't want the lady to call security now, do we?" What? Entitled mother then turned back to me. "I mean, really, my daughter is 8 years old. You're a grown woman. You shouldn't be making such a big deal about chocolate." I pointed out that if she wanted candy, they would literally give her some for free at the kiosk herself. There was no need to steal mine. Entitled mother continued to defend her daughter, insisting that I might as well just go get more chocolate myself. I was pissed, but I didn't want things to get blown out of proportion. For some reason, though, I hoped the daughter would at least begin to understand why she couldn't just go around stealing people's food. So I said, "Ma'am, I'm trying really hard to be patient here. I'm a nanny. But how could it possibly be okay for your daughter to steal candy from a complete stranger like that?" Next thing I know, my face was burning and there was a large handprint across my cheek. Entitled mother also had large rings that almost broke my skin. She was screaming at me, but I was too shocked to pay attention. One of my friends heard the commotion and came to see what was going on. I told them entitled mother had slapped me, so he called security. Before they could arrive, entitled mother told her daughter not to tell them anything. Me and my friend exchanged looks and silently agreed we'd be better parents in the future. The security came and escorted entitled mother and her daughter out. I later found out they'd been banned from the toy store for their troubles, and that was more than enough for me. I ended up buying more chocolate sticks. I hope that kid turned out okay. There's so many stories of people who just steal from people. There's a lot of entitled parents out there that seem to think that if you have something, you have to share with people. They think that if you have something and they want it, well, just ask for it because you're just going to share with them because everybody shares, and it's just not true. Our next story is by Melodic Swordfish 27. Mother is upset that I use my first name in class. Obligatory, this happened about 2 years ago. I teach philosophy and epistemology to high schoolers. I'm also fairly young for a high school teacher. I introduce myself as Faye, my given first name, which has been my given name since birth to my students. Well, I got an email from a parent that reads, "Mademoiselle Bettencourt, this is Karen, and I am Kevin's mother. I'm deeply disturbed that you allow students to call you by your first name and believe this is unprofessional and confuses children. My child's test scores clearly reflect this, as your class is the only one he is struggling in. And as he has maintained an outstanding academic performance, it is clear that you are the problem. I highly suggest that, in order to better teach my child, you reflect on this and begin to use your professional name. So I responded, Karen, thank you for reaching out to me. I'm awfully glad you are so concerned with your child's performance in my class. As you might not be aware, I do not grade homework or tests as official standing, and they go only to show an empiricist view of one's performance. Don't worry, this means the grade you see in the system will be different from the final grade, as your child will have a 100% in my class. This was made clear in my syllabus. You should also note that I attach my comments for every assignment and include an annotated copy of your child's exams and essays, so that they may see where they need to improve. If you have specifics about concepts your child is struggling with and ways that might better help him learn these concepts, I'd be more than happy to meet with you over coffee or tea to discuss with you. So she responds, the annotations are incredibly vague and abstract and offer little insight into how my child, who is brilliant, may improve. However, I see you mark him wrong every time he refers to you as Mademoiselle Betancourt and replace it with Faye. It is illogical to ask a child to indulge in such a silly name. I highly advise you to quit marking my child wrong for your professional name in his essays. Likewise, I believe that you are his teacher and you should use your professional name. So I decide to be petty and respond. Thank you for your response. I appreciate how illogical and unsound your argumentation is, as this is a perfect example of Hume's law. I shall be using this to model in class examples of bad argumentation from now on. Thank you for the free class materials. I got a response back from her, but I didn't respond. I feel like this has to be a super private school. Most people don't say Mademoiselle. M-L-L-E is Mademoiselle, and with a last name like Betancourt, it sounds like it's some high society situation. I don't know. But, as one of the comments says, I'll read the comment first and then add. The reply from Magic Dog 1234 says, lol, the classical, my child is brilliant, therefore you are the problem because I cannot accept that my child is not that brilliant. That happens all the time in schools. You get students who are performing well in some classes, but they'll not do well in one, and all they do is blame the teacher. And I gotta add that sometimes it is the teacher, but in most cases it's not. I definitely had a math teacher when I was in high school that I could not stand. I didn't like him at all. And I had a twin brother who was in all my classes with me, and he loved that teacher, but that teacher was a jerk to me, and because of him, I hated math in school, and now I can literally teach it to students. I'm much better at it now than I was when I was really young. Just to share the reason why I didn't really like this teacher, because I used to talk to students about this that said they hated the teachers. I believe this class was Algebra 2, and my math teacher was a kind of stern older man. And I had a question in class, and I raised my hand, and granted, it was a dumb question, now that I look back on it, and he looks at me, and he stops, and he just stands there for a second, and then he throws his hands up, and he says, you don't know that? Well, if you don't know that, you shouldn't be in this class. I never asked a single other question at that point. A lot of teachers will have posters on the wall that say there's no question that's a dumb question and that you should ask questions. If you're confused, you need it clarified. And I was confused. But he just embarrassed me, and I never asked another question in his class, and my grade went from having like 93 average down to maybe a 73. So it can be the teacher's fault, and it was in his case. And now I love math, but I had to get over my fear of my questions being rejected, my confusion being ridiculed in a way. Sometimes it's the teacher's fault, but a lot of times it's not. And there are entitled parents that think, My child can do no wrong. My child is so smart. And they're not always right. Our last story is by Nora Jean Graves. Neighbor's child joins gathering and he's, not invited? Backstory. There is a child in my apartment complex who's allowed to run wild, is extremely disrespectful to adults, recently ruined my Mommy and Me event, taking my autistic son to get ice cream because he wanted the $10 ice cream and decided to pout until his mother offered to pay for what he wanted. He rides his bike aggressively towards my children who are 2, 5, and 10, literally having to brake so he doesn't hit my child, and worse, my kids always fall off their bikes due to this behavior. His mom doesn't reprimand this child and believes no one should say anything to said child. Whenever my adult friend and I are outside hanging out, here comes this said kid. I've spoken to the parent about him not being in adults' faces, etc., and he continues. I literally have to shut my window to have a conversation with my children because he sits outside listening by my window, instead of being upstairs on the deck his mommy pays for. Today, it's Memorial Day, and my family and I are grilling and hanging out, and here he comes to participate in my gathering, asking for food, involving himself with guests, etc., etc. Am I the bad guy for telling him to go upstairs with his own family? Best reply in the comments is from Underarm Aussie. Someone has to tell this kid no. If his parents won't, then do it yourself. Like you said, it's your gathering and he's not invited. I completely agree with this one, as long as it's involving you or the safety of people you love and know or something like that. Tell them no. You don't have to chase them down and tell them no and try to control everything they're doing, but yeah, if they're involving themselves with everything or they're hanging out outside your window, tell them no. Tell them go away. You are not part of our family. Go do your thing with your family. This sort of thing also happens quite frequently when parents kind of neglect their child. So I almost feel bad for the kid too. Our episode has come to a close for today. If you like this content, please click like or subscribe or leave a short comment down below. It helps my channel grow. Until we meet again, have a sensational day.